You're listening to the Downshift podcast, where four mates from Melbourne take you trackside for all the action in Formula One, breaking down the races, the drama, and everything in between, all with a little banter and a lot of passion. If you love motorsport and cars, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you're always on the grid with us. And if you want to support the team, leave us a 5-star review. So let's get into another action-packed episode. It's lights out, drop the clutch, and let's get racing. Hello and welcome to the Downshift, where three mates are talking about the review of the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix in Imola, where we don't know whether or not we'll see this again in the immediate future, as the contract has expired this year. It's also a race where we knew that it was turn one that would have a major bearing on the result, and where F1 didn't recognise Flavio Briatore as the team principal, instead referring to racing director Dave Greenwood, who actually holds an F1 licence. Ferrari displayed a masterclass in what it takes to be Ferrari, and we saw a VSC and safety car for basically roadside breakdowns, so calling for roadside assist. And there was talks of brilliance for Pirelli and the FIA, making racing a little bit more interesting. And we finished up the race finally, where you would have thought that Norris had won the championship, after saying, not saying to swap, but just saying to give him second place. So with all that quick review, Lockie, what were your thoughts of the race?
Look, I thought it definitely came down to turn one being the penultimate turn to start with. And I think Piastri will absolutely be kicking himself that he braked just that smidge earlier. But an absolute driving masterclass from Verstappen from that point of view to actually hit that corner and keep going. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. And then look, the rest of the race really came down to those pit stops and the safety cars. That was actually the bank up there. Verstappen, absolute masterclass in his driving from that one. But then you look at the sort of, from the first top five drivers, really, really good. But then the second, was it the rest of the field was 15 seconds or something like that. They were quite tightly bunched up for a race that we've seen. Whereas if you look at the Chinese Grand Prix and that, there was laps behind on what the other drivers were. So I think this race actually, everyone was saying it was going to be boring. There wasn't enough spots to overtake. I actually thought the overtaking was reasonable on it. And there was, especially watching some of it from even Hamilton and things like that, the way that they cut through it. And to be fair, watching Piastri cut back through the field the way he did as well, that was a driving masterclass as well. Watching him just slice through the backfield, it was just like they weren't even there sometimes, just overtook him. So actually was quite a good race to watch, and having those two breakdowns as well, bunched the field back up again and made it some good racing towards the end.
Yeah, I thought it was a good race. It did come down to that. It wasn't necessarily turn one, but it came down to those first few corners that Oscar needed to stay in front, and he was always going to be under a bit of pressure with Max behind him. But he also had George. George was close on his tail there, and when you watch the start, you sort of go, well, Oscar probably was in front of Max and probably could have cut him off, or come across to cover, but then he would have left himself open for George to come in underneath. So it was
George's radio chatter. Well, when he was up behind Piastri and he hit that first corner and Verstappen got in front, George actually went, "What's Piastri doing?" Because George would have followed him through, and Max would have actually had to come back in third in the end. But because he actually cut the foot off the gas, George had to brake as well. So that bit of footage in his car was quite interesting to watch the replay on that.
And it begs the question as to whether or not Oscar had his eyes more on the rearview mirror than what was next to him, and was watching Russell sort of braking to defend, as opposed to realising that he actually had to brake late so that he could stay ahead of Verstappen.
But his mirrors were fully in one mirror. He had Max Verstappen in, very close, and in the other mirror he had George Russell very close, and then Lando was also around the back there just waiting for the opportunity. So it was a good start. And Russell had a really good start. They showed the reaction time for Russell, he did really well. So him and Max put a lot of pressure on Oscar, and that just, not to say that Oscar faulted. He admitted himself that he probably broke a little bit late, but you're probably talking, hundredths of a second late sort of business. It's just, but probably the last three Grand Prix, that first corner has been very similar. There's always been the two cars coming into it. One's generally gone wide. It's just been very similar. So, but and after that, I thought, you'll chase him down with the faster car, but uh, Red Bull have obviously done some work on that car. So they've got their racing speed back. It seems like not McLaren 30 seconds ahead kind of speed, but certainly enough to, the McLarens were struggling they weren't really eating into it much.
Well, that gives us a good opportunity to, before we get into the details of the race and talking through that, is just to take a step back to basically the practices and ultimately qualifying. We did see for Imola that we had a number of upgrades. There was only two teams who didn't bring any upgrades to the race, which was Williams and Sauber. We had Aston Martin, Haas, and Racing Bulls bringing major upgrades. And to your point, Dan, is Red Bull were amongst the others who were bringing tweaks to the car, where Red Bull had made revisions to the shape of the side pod and the radiator duct inlet as well. So obviously, the teams are still placing some attention on 2025. We're still working on the 2026 car, but we saw a little bit of action in qualifying.
Yeah, well, they had good. A lot of teams had good pace, except for Ferrari when it came to qualifying. But they, I think we spoke last week or last time, thinking that McLaren with their braking systems and their tyre cooling business was going to be a little while for the other teams to catch up to that technology and catch it up. But they've all done a lot of work, and whatever they've done, that's just chipping away at McLaren's dominance in the first few rounds. So brings everything back to a bit of an even keel, I think, for the next, well, not next, but maybe the rest of this season. If McLaren thought they were 30 seconds ahead at Miami and had a clear pace advantage, that's not there at the moment by the looks of it. I mean, obviously different track, but yeah.
Well, if we're talking qualifying, like it was quite a good qualifying session to actually sit down and watch. I mean, obviously Q1 you sort of had everything was going fine, and all of a sudden, Sonoda in turn 6 flipped it over the barrier, flipped the whole car over. He got out, so he was fine. That was all right. But yeah, that was a massive stack that he took that on there. And then going to Colapinto, then what's that? The turn 15, I think it was, and then just
Turn 4, Tamburello.
It put it straight into the wall, and you sort of look at it and go, well, I'm pretty sure that they cut to footage of Jack Doohan as he was walking along there, and allegedly, just after they told him, he smiled. But I mean, he wrote that car off completely as well. I'd love to see what the repair bill on that one was. And then probably the only quirk with qualifying was, and I thought he was actually really hard done by, was Ollie Behrman not having his lap because he was, 5 meters, 10 meters away from crossing the line, and the red flag went up, and so they said no, it didn't count, which was quite interesting watching them both sit in the pits before Q1, I think it was, or 2, whatever it was, and then Kickstarter just brought their car straight out and was sitting at the line there for quite a while before the actual quali started.
Yeah, that was a baller move.
A lot to do with the timing, isn't it?
Games.
He was very unlucky there. It looked like Colin Pinto's accident was very, I shouldn't say the same, but it seemed very similar with Yuki, that just they had a bit of a step out in the rear, like just lost a bit of traction, the rear's higher. And then from then it was just, they were on skates. They couldn't do anything with it. But no. And I thought I might see more of that, because of maybe there was something on the track that was a bit tricky, but no, it was just a couple of spots they got done in by.
Just hot tyres and clipping the grass, and so therefore putting it into a bit of a flat spin. And in regards to Colapinto, that's where we saw in last year. And so Colapinto is not a rookie. He's had 9 races so far. And, this is the same thing that I was saying about Lawson. Lawson's coming in not as a rookie. He's had a number of races prior to 2025. When you're coming in and essentially kicking out another driver, you've been given, and look, it's said that he's been given 5 races. When Flavio was interviewed, he's going, "What are you talking about?" So, the Alpine PR team and Flavio Briatore need to get their story straight. But as I think I said in the last podcast, Alpine saying Colapinto's got 5 races, I think that is just a PR spin just to say, hey, we're being reasonable to the 2 drivers. Flavio's gone, nah, he's in and we're going ahead. But I would prefer to be slow and not bin it into the wall than, trying to be fast, just getting into the top 15 and then destroying the car on your first race back in.
Well, the question would be, if he causes enough damage, will he get kicked back out again?
For whom?
Well, Colapinto, if he keeps binning the cars, if he does it again in the 3rd round or the 4th round. Do they just put Doohan back in again?
Another team running out of drivers. I mean, the Alpine PR team just need to follow Flavio's lead because he's going to say whatever he wants to say. They just need to follow what he's doing. But I mean,
And just
Colin Pinto, I know
stuck
he's got race experience and he's not a rookie per se, but he's probably not been in the car for a while. And I know they're at the races and they're there and they're watching and they're involved and they're obviously doing some practice and training and simulators and whatnot. But again, once you're out on a track in a hot car, ready to go. A bit of pressure on your heels. Yeah, it doesn't take much.
We did the same Saturday night. We were doing simulation runs around the track as well. And let's put our hands up. I'm pretty sure I've binned it about 8 times into the walls.
I don't think
the track
around the
it
track
looked
would be
different.
very accurate. Like, I think
It says it's a laser
between the
scan
three of us
version
got
of it,
one lap in, complete without
No,
spinning,
I didn't complete one.
maybe?
No, I did not complete one without
I
spinning.
don't recall.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, the three of us had a poker night on Saturday night, and so beforehand we jumped onto iRacing with Imola with the Mercedes F1 car, and it gives you a real appreciation for just how loose these cars can be, and that you've got to really be in control to get a lap.
I did send a list of suggestions on how they could improve the car after my chat. So hopefully they'll take that into account. So it should be fine.
I'm sure Mercedes are already onto it, Loggy.
I'm just waiting for a return email reply. It should be coming through shortly. It's fine.
But closing up the conversation on Colapinto is my take on it is he's there for the rest of the season because of money. Quite simply, Flavio is Doohan's manager and he's dropped him like a hot potato. Colapinto's come in and regardless of a number of crashes, he's bringing big sponsorship dollars into the team, and that's what Alpine are looking for, to be able to cash up while they're trying to get ready to sell the team to anyone.
So based on the qualifying that we saw, if we were to go, when did we do this? Thursday episode, and if I told you that at the end of qualifying, there'll be 2 Aston Martins, 2 Williams, and an Alpine in the top 10, what odds would you have given me back then on Thursday when we actually spoke about that?
Yeah, that was interesting.
I would have believed you on the Williams, but Aston Martin, my God, it was just
no Ferrari.
Who would have thunk it?
No Ferrari on the home track.
There was the memes too of Stroll and Alonso sitting in a bar going, "Welcome to Q3," and Stroll goes, "What's a Q3?"
I didn't know it went that high.
Yeah, so I mean, look, I mean they
we laughed, but we couldn't even get a lap in, so that's fine.
I thought that after that practice, or not practice, but after that qualifying, I thought that actually might have done more in the race, and they started off looked like they were doing okay, but yeah, it's a shame they couldn't do more.
I don't think they've got entire race pace for that car. Like, I just don't think it can compete over the whole journey at pace like the other ones can. So, if you put them on a straight and tore down the straight, I just don't think they'd be finished. Bar maybe Alpine or Haas, that those three have been in the back markers. They just don't have that edge of speed to actually keep up.
The problem was for them as well is they burnt up their tyres in qualifying and practice. So as they came into the race, both Alonso and Stroll were running used tyres through the whole race. So they weren't getting fresh rubber from the very start, whereas all the other teams, apart from McLaren, Norris had to use used tyres at the end. Russell started on used tyres, and the only other team was Bortoleto. So Bortoleto had used tyres for the end of the race as well. So, but Aston obviously had burnt it all up. They were one of the teams who brought a major upgrade. So they brought new floor, fences, diffuser, and a beam wing. So there's a lot that contributed to that. But yeah, fresh rubber is always going to be something that's going to be a major contributor.
Isn't that part of Oscar's problem towards the end of the race? Like, his tyres were done. I mean, they kind of, I didn't quite understand their pit strategy bringing him in so early because it seemed well out of the window of what was to be expected. But there's clearly some strategy involved there. But yeah, I think towards the end, like, he just didn't have tyres. He didn't even have tyres to put on.
Look, as Pirelli had gone for the softer set of tyres, so we had the C4, C5, C6. It was the intention to make a two-stop strategy for all the teams, and so from that perspective, it's still recognising how these tyres are going. So when you look at it, is Piastri. I think McLaren was just gun shy. So it was lap 13. So they've just gone, we're going to bring you in because the tyres were starting to grain. But what we're seeing with these Pirellis is that the tyres grain, but then they rejuvenate almost. So you'll get that graining, but then the tyre gets better and you get a longer run. So when you look at it, is both Verstappen and Norris did 29 and 28 laps respectively, and then came in. Norris was just before the virtual safety car. Verstappen came in on the virtual safety car, so he basically got a free pit stop. And that's when they swapped over to the hards. Now, Piastri, had he stayed out till 28, 29, and they did exactly what they did with him at his second pit stop, he would have been on the hards and he would have had a one-stop strategy, and he would have saved himself probably about 12 seconds. So he would have ended up being in front. When you think about it, is the final timings for the race. You had Piastri, who finished 12.9 seconds behind Verstappen, and Norris 6.1. So every likelihood, it could have been very close to the tail end of that race.
Bit of misdone strategy perhaps, but I mean it's always interesting. You can always go, well, what if? That's what we like to do at the end of it. Talk about the what ifs, and I'm sure they sat around and had a bit of a chat about the what ifs. I mean, Oscar sort of alluded to that after the race there'd be some chats around what happened, but that's just the way the races are run, isn't it? And the safety cars make a big impact. Yes.
I think credit where credit's due to Piastri, though, and just being clinical in regards to his driving, is while he was brought in early for that pit stop, is he just, after that lap after lap, he just regained position. So you may recall that Tsunoda was actually asked to hold Piastri up. As soon as that happened, Piastri, under DRS, passed him on the straight with very little effort, and Piastri just continued to, lap after lap, overtake the next car and the next car and the next car to get himself back up to position. So he's just showing that he is a championship driver. He's taking it up to Verstappen, and it's just a case of, again, just some silly decisions or poor strategy, whichever way you want to call it, which is really the pit wall undid Piastri for this race.
Yeah, which is amazing because that's the first time we've seen a pit wall make a mistake this season. It's incredible.
Yeah, they've normally been pretty good. Wow,
very reliable.
Yeah, but you're right. Like Oscar was just grinding away and just doing what he had to do and just climbing and climbing. And look, I thought at one point that didn't even look like he was going to get in the top three. But once he took George was fourth. Yeah, he got past that. So, and he's just clean and clinical with it all too. Like, just there was nothing. Yeah,
yeah. And look, from that perspective, is when we saw it after the safety car, which had closed up the field, Oscar was a second and a half behind Verstappen for a number of laps. Obviously, that started to ease back, and that's when Norris got on the radio saying, "I'm not asking, but I'd have a better chance of passing Verstappen than Oscar." And so he was asking for team orders to do the driver swap, and the team did that. And you saw Norris fall back to 6 seconds behind Max. So from that perspective, he didn't do it. He did absolutely nothing with the position that the pit gave him.
A bit of what ifs because Oscar's tyres were done at that stage. So I think he was going to have a hard time trying to chase him down.
With wasn't it Hamilton and
Leclerc and Hamilton?
Leclerc, yeah. I mean, he swapped over and did nothing, and he's like, "Well, what was the point of that?" Like,
well, that was all interesting round. Well, I don't know what lap it was, but when they took the two Ferraris, when there was Ferrari, Leclerc, Albon, and Hamilton in a row, and Albon was trying to get past Leclerc and just didn't quite get it, and then kind of went a bit wide on the track, and then got taken by both of them. So lost out on that little episode.
Yeah, he bounced right across the grass then.
Yeah, it was unfortunate because he was just pushing.
Yeah, he had to give it back, because otherwise there would have been a penalty, which would have probably cost him 5 seconds. I mean, from that, we're seeing that the standard is about 5 seconds that the stewards are giving for those sorts of incidents. So it was the right move for Leclerc to give that back to avoid any further action.
It made no difference anyway.
Yeah, but and so if you look at Ferrari and for qualifying, finishing 11th and 12th, and I mean that was perfectly summed up by Charles going, "Oh God, oh God, oh God." But then you saw the redemption in the race with Hamilton finishing 4th and Leclerc finishing in 6th place. And to your point, is only because he did have to concede that position so that he didn't get penalised any further. And so we saw Aston Martin. Lockie, I know you were actually no, sorry, Dan, you were talking about the flames coming out of Fernando's wheels.
Yeah, so they had the pit stop and changed tyres, which was all good. There was a little bit of smoke and I don't know, brake dust or whatever coming out of the tyres, which I think is pretty normal. And then he took off, and then there was like I thought it was a new paint job they had on the inside of the wheels, but it was flames coming out of his inside of the wheels. I don't know where exactly it was coming from, but then by the time he'd gotten out to the line to rejoin the racetrack, it was gone. So it was clearly not of major
Maybe
merit
the
or
new sponsor's
concern.
piping hot. We don't know.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
It's the Aston Martin hot rod.
Well, don't the flame like the flames on your car? They go faster, don't they? If you got
Yeah. Probably on the sides though, not necessarily in the drum
right.
brakes. Though,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's look, and it's not common, but you do see that because you've got the brakes which are at extreme temperatures. So at that low speed, you will be able to catch, and you'll see as you start to move the aero that comes through that will put that out and cool the brakes, and so obviously it's not a big concern there. So, but yeah, so it's as you see Alonso finished off the race saying, it's going to be torture. I'm the unluckiest driver in the world. And for someone who just got knocked out of points by, and Yuki Tsunoda, who started in the pit and was able to pull in a point just by slipping into 10th position.
Which, fair credit to him too, that's a good drive.
Yeah, very good finish. I mean, from that perspective, making up 10 spots, he drove very well.
You sort of got to feel a little bit for Ocon and Antonelli as well, having power unit failure. And what was Antonelli's in there? Was it just a drive failure, or because he had to pull off on the side of the road too as a mechanical failure as well? So it was by no fault of their own, both of them DNF. So
yeah, both mechanical.
Didn't really see a lot from Antonelli this weekend. I think I was expecting more from him based on his previous performances, and also, well, the home race. Always, everyone likes for his, the home race to be their race, but yeah, he wasn't really at the pointy end.
Yeah, I think he was disappointed with that
the
too.
Races.
Yeah, big distraction for a new young driver coming in. Home race and literally
All your schoolmates there.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Is he
whole class?
As you're seeing all these young people coming and checking out the paddock, and he's signing autographs for his schoolmates, and
bring your schoolmates to work day.
Yeah. Mum was in the garage because he was born 40 kilometres down the road in Bologna. So yeah,
he's got his license now, though, hasn't he? Didn't he get his license the other day?
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I think he has, because he had. They showed how he driven his whatever AMG car he's been given to school to show his mates or whatever.
Yeah, and I thought they showed him
doing
his test, and the instructor said, "Congratulations, so he's actually got his driver's license now, so
qualified to drive on the road."
Yeah, just can't make it home because the car breaks down.
Well, that's what roadside assistance is for, so it's all good.
So, well, obviously he needed it there, as did Ocon. So, but staying on the Mercedes, and this is where we saw George Russell finish for the first time outside of the top five. So massive, not a terrible result for George. George finishing in P7, but it's
still
the first time that he
points in every race
five.
this season, though.
Yep, still doing well.
Well, to be fair, the fact that both the Williams got points has put them, they're having an incredible run for where they thought they'd be. To have both of them turn around and get a fifth and eighth or something like that as well for the track, they've got to be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, they've done a great job there. So, Williams far exceeding any sort of result that I think they were expecting or anyone was expecting for this season, doing very well.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, I didn't have them finishing the top 10 for this race.
All right, so finally wrapping things up, as I mentioned at the start, we saw in the cool-down room after the race, you would have thought that Norris had won the championship with his demeanour and body language. You had a few comments in regards to that, Swags?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Oscar was there by himself for a while, just watching the start. And then Verstappen came in and put his helmet on the rack, which was in front of Oscar, so he had to sort of cut in front of him as well and put his gear over there, which I thought was a bit strange how they had it laid out. Perhaps I don't know whether it's a consistent thing, but yeah. Then also, Lando came in and they were just doing the regular, fairly cold debrief in that room when there's Max and Lando in the same room together, but just the usual. So
yeah, what I found interesting was the body language, and to your point, Piastri was, I thought, sitting there in quiet reflection. He was watching the replay and probably reflecting on, oh, yeah, okay, and he in his interview afterwards saying that I broke too soon and recognised that mistake and has owned that. But with Norris, to your point, Max came in, put his stuff down, but then Norris came in and stood in front of the TV, so almost blocked Piastri from that quiet reflection. Starts taking his jumpsuit off and being quite cocky. I thought it was there was some body language. Maybe I was reading a bit too much into it, but essentially lording it over Piastri a little bit to say, "Hey, I've been able to beat you in this one." Which I think had they not done the swap, he still would have been in third place.
Is the
But
cool down
you
room a
think at a
new thing, or have
smaller,
they always been doing that?
It's been the last couple of years. So, I mean, this has been a Netflix drive to survive as they've recognised the punters want more and more access to the drivers. Being able to see them and hear them in the cool down room has been a welcome addition for the fans.
Yeah, it just feels like one of those things that they're kind of forced to do for not really any, like, you just finished a race that's gone for, anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours or whatever it is. And they go, oh, let's all sit in a room together and reflect on how I beat you. Like, it just seems a little
yeah, but it's also
fraction
that part where they
contrived to
go,
me.
we've got to get everyone in front of the grandstand. We've got to make sure that's set up as well. We've got to clear that area. So what do they do with them for 5 minutes? Let's stick them in a room where they can stand in front of a TV. But the other thing is they haven't seen the highlights. So when you see someone who crashed out or someone else overtook, you're like, oh, I didn't realize that person did that. Or so from that perspective, you can watch them go, oh, didn't see that one on the track. Or that was a good move. But yeah, I think from your point too, Lando going, haha, I'm back on top again. That was definitely more of a power move than anything else.
And a few weeks ago, it was Piastri and Russell were in that room with Lando, but and Piastri and Russell just happily chatting to each other like buddies.
And someone sulking in the corner.
And what stays on the track goes on the track, stays on the track. But anyway, that's it's it is a little bit interesting because you do. I don't know why it's interesting, whether it's just a bit of a bit of soap opera that we like to watch, but yeah.
But to your point, Dan, and this is where there is not another elite sport in the world where the athletes are expected to be accessible, on point the second before they step onto the court or into the car or what have you. These guys have got a camera in their face almost minutes before they're in the car. As soon as they get out the car, they've got a camera in their face again, and they're performing monkeys. I mean, you look in regards to the TikToks that they're being asked to do through the week. You saw it in Miami, sitting down on the beach chairs and having to put on all the different bits and pieces.
Count the pasta in the jar. But, that's why you're getting paid the big bucks, isn't it, to count pasta in a jar?
Correct. It's all about making content and engaging with the fans, the new audience, the young punters who are wanting, who are on the Insta, on the gram. So
but that's the thing, they've only got an attention span of 20 seconds, so you got to fill that in short breaks.
Yeah. So I agree with you. It's interesting, especially when there is reaction to the replay and seeing what's going on there. You're talking about drivers who. What blows me away is just how tuned into the race they are. You're doing 250, 300 kilometers an hour. They are making commentary. They're talking calmly to their race engineer. They're marking where things are happening, and they're remembering parts of the race, which it's phenomenal.
Athletes, world-class top athletes.
World class.
Professionals.
Correct. So we then saw, and that transition to the podium, Lando skipping almost onto the podium for his second place trophy and medal, which then saw us seeing Max being crowned as the victor for the race. So overall, I think as we look at Imola, a amazing conclusion to the race, also a testament to the spectacle that is Imola, a nice, tight, competitive track, which I'm really glad provided some action for what looks to be the last race for as far as we can see at the moment. Hopefully, we'll hear some more news and we see Imola at least come back on a schedule, and even if it's where we're swapping out Imola every second year for another race as well. So as we wrap up the review of the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. The next episode will be the preview of the Monaco Grand Prix. So until then, we'll see you on the next lap. And that's the checkered flag for this episode of The Downshift. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us in the paddock. If you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss a lap. And hey, if we've earned it, drop us a 5-star review. It really helps us climb the grid and reach more motorsport fans. Tune in next time as we keep pushing flat out to bring you fresh, current, and entertaining content. Until next time, keep it fast, keep it fun, and we'll catch you on the next lap.